And now we come to the first actual sequel in the Avengers line, Iron Man 2 from 2010. After a summer of no Avengers films, and instead having a bit of a kick in the face from another popular Marvel franchise, Marvel decided to return to the Avengers line that was doing so well with the first sequel, Iron Man 2, still helmed by Jon Favreau and starring most of the returning cast to reprise their roles. It had a lot of hype to it, this one, considering the first one, 2 years earlier, was a box office and critical smash. So, does this one live up to the hype? Well, the short answer is, in some ways yes, and in other ways no. The long answer, well, that's what my review is for. So let's start, as always, by looking at the plot. So this one actually starts in Russia, where we see a young man who's mourning over the loss of his father, who just dies in the opening video. We then see the same man building what appears to be an arc reactor, just like Stark built in the last movie. And though we don't know it now, later we'll find out this man's name is Ivan Vanko, who's played by Mickey Rourke. But meanwhile, we do get back to Stark's life, and he's planning to open his Stark Expo, which was a dream of his father's so many years before. Unfortunately, he's running into a couple of issues, two big ones in particular. The first is that the government wants him to turn over the Iron Man weapon suit for research, and so that they can use it themselves. That includes rival weapons manufacturer Justin Hammer, played by Sam Rockwell, who's one of the biggest douchebags in recent years, but we'll touch on that later. The other issue is Stark's own arc reactor that has been keeping him alive all these years, these last two anyway, is actually poisoning him and thus killing him. But Stark is eventually met up by Vanko, who reveals some interesting information about Stark's past, including his father, Vanko, and several other little tidbits. And the rest of the movie is essentially a combination of those three plot points, as it leads up to a very exciting conclusion. So, as with every movie sequel, the big question is what works and what doesn't when compared to the first one. Well, there's a lot of stuff that does work, and there's some stuff that doesn't. But what's ironic to me is some of the weak stuff from Iron Man 1 is better, and some of the strong stuff from Iron Man 1 is weaker. What do I mean by that? Well, let's look at the improvements first. First off, no matter where you go, it's pretty easy to find someone who actually agrees that this one did have more interesting and more entertaining villains in the form of Rourke and Rockwell. I like Rourke's portrayal of Whiplash as this tattooed megalomaniac who's also obsessed with technology. He kind of serves as like a rival to Tony Stark, and as the plot thickens, we learn even more about that. But I really liked his character. I loved his design, by the way. The concept was really cool, that he had these electric whips that could just cut through anything. It's kind of like a lightsaber. Again, I'm bringing up Star Wars, but that's really the best way to put it. And I really was interested in this villain. I thought he was cool from the first time I saw the trailer, so that was an improvement. And Sam Rockwell, who plays Justin Hammer, is, as I said before, one of the biggest douchebags in recent movie years. He's whiny, he's bitchy, he just wants to get ahead of Stark. But he manages to do it in a way that is... He kind of reminds me of Calloway, the asshole secretary from the second Transformers movie. That's the best way to put it to him. And it's funny to see him go in the end. It's not as funny as in Transformers 2. Awkward for me to make that comparison, but it is good to see what happens to them in the end. Overall, I really like the villains in this one. They were a big improvement over Stane's villain in the last one, so there's a plus. Another plus is I thought the action scenes were a lot more improved, and especially the two big ones in where Vanko and Stark of course as Iron Man, fight in a race in Monaco, and the thrilling climax that has Stark, Rhodey, in fact, pretty much everyone. So that was really cool. They're much more high octane, and though they're more common, they do feel like just as much effort and interesting effects were put into them, so there's a plus on that. And my third plus is with some of the new additions to the cast. Jon Favreau, the director, actually stars as one of Tony Stark's associates here, and the scenes with him are actually really funny. There's a scene towards the end. As I said, pretty much everyone in this movie is involved in the final climax, and he's just fighting Oaks off left and right. Well, he's trying to anyway, and that got a good laugh from me, so it's nice to have a comic relief character like that. We've got Scarlett Johansson here, looking gorgeous, as always, as Natasha Romanoff, aka the Black Widow, and she's a lot of fun, really enjoyable character, though we don't even know that she's going to be the Black Widow till about halfway through, unless you've read the comics, of course. She starts out as kind of this secretary and rival romance to Paltrow's Pepper, and that kind of made the romance a little bit more clever. I liked it. So, again, another good addition. But the one I think everyone talks about is the fact of James Rhodes, or Rhodey. Yes, there's a new actor portraying him. Now it's Don Cheadle as opposed to Terrence Howard. Why they switched that out, I've heard different stories, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about Cheadle's performance. And I gotta say, while I don't like him as much as I liked Howard, I still thought he did okay. He had his moments. There was this sort of big brother sibling relationship to them. Not as strong, but it was still there. So, on a whole, not too bad of a switch. There have been a lot worse in other superhero movies alone. So, there are some improvements. We have entertaining villains, we have entertaining action, and a lot of other supporting cast. So, where does this movie fall through? And honestly, I've got to say what's the most ironic about this is it pretty much has the same faults I found with the Incredible Hulk movie from 2008. First off, the romance between these two. This was something I praised about the first Iron Man movie, in which I felt like Paltrow's character, Pepper Potts, although she did get involved, she was never really the damsel in distress-esque character. It never got to the point where she was annoying and you actually wanted her to get kidnapped just so she could get out of the picture. That's what I thought in the first movie. She still doesn't become that way in the second movie, but she does get a little bit too involved. I think the romance between Paltrow and Downey Jr. is a bit heavy, because most of the time, they're just bickering to one another. They're just like, da-da-da, ba-da-da, 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 and it's really annoying because they're constantly fighting as if they were a married couple, which to me, personally, wouldn't bother me, but it's not just between these two characters. There are a few bits between Downey and Cheadle, and I think there's even one moment where Downey and Johansson are going at it. And I just want to go into the movie and look at them and like, shut up! You're obnoxious! Stop it! I want to see Iron Man fighting, not the newlywed aftermath. Okay, that did get a bit annoying at times for me personally. But personally, the biggest problem here comes in the story, which, again, I'm going back to my review of the first Iron Man movie, which I thought was an intelligent combination of a superhero movie and an espionage thriller. This one, how do I put this? I just felt like it was trying to be more of a crowd pleaser and move up with the action and the villains more than anything else. Because this one goes more for a straight-up superhero feel, which, again, isn't always bad. As I said, I loved the action scenes, and there were a lot more explosions, and the ending conclusion, the climax, that was great. But I kind of missed that whole sort of terrorist gang-esque violence in it. That was what I really enjoyed about the first movie. And when that was gone and replaced, I was really let down. I mean, I did not see this movie opening weekend. I didn't see it until about a week after. It was actually Mother's Day when I went to go see this. in 2010. So I had read the reviews. I was thinking, oh, it's a superhero movie. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it can't be that difficult to enjoy. But when I saw it, I do understand the faults. This one isn't as intelligent as the first, and that's just a throwback to me personally. But it's not completely at loss. There are a few good things. Like, I liked it how this one included a lot of scenes where we see Tony's father, Howard Stark, and I thought those scenes were handled greatly. I personally thought it was both funny and intelligent to make Howard Stark look like Walt Disney. And there's one scene towards the end of the movie, right before the third act, where we see a little flashback, and all through the movie, Stark has been going on like, my father didn't want anything to do with me. He would rather be at work. And then we finally get the line he said, where Howard Stark in the video says, my greatest invention and creation will always be you. And I thought that line was really touching. And I don't know the actor they got to play Stark in the videos, but I thought he did a good job. And speaking of the third act, that was where things really heated up a lot, personally. Like, the second act is the biggest fault with this movie. And particularly, there's this one really bad scene that I didn't like, where Downey and Cheadle are both in Iron Man costumes, and they're fighting in his house at the birthday party. They're tearing shit up all around. There's explosions. Stark is drunk, as you can probably guess, and while it does lend to some cool visuals, I'm just thinking to myself, what's the point of this? This is a really nice house, you're just tearing it up. I just didn't get that scene. But, and I'm going to borrow this line from Spill.com's review of Iron Man 2. I feel like after the second act, the filmmakers got on and said, oh, hey, we're making an Iron Man movie. We gotta pump it up a bit, make it more exciting. And that's when it got through. The third act, and as well as the first act, I definitely thought made up for the second act. So overall, it kind of balances out. I'd say the pluses definitely outweigh the minuses. So, on a whole, as I said, Iron Man is still my favorite of the Avengers, and this one did not disappoint me enough to really bring that down. It's still exciting, the villains are both entertaining and threatening, and although at times the chemistry between our main characters can be obnoxious, they're still good in the role. I can recommend Iron Man 2. Is it as good as the first one? Obviously, as you can tell from my review, no. But it's a fun time. I enjoyed it, and I think it's a very good continuation to the franchise. So, 3.5 stars out of 5 for Iron Man 2. You can find all my movie reviews on my YouTube channel. If you have a movie you'd like me to review, comment on this video or on my channel. Subscribe if you like, and until next time, peace!